And welcome back to episode 122 of the Weekly Tech Rant with me, Jay.
And me, Carl.
Well, Carl, we're back once again for a slightly different roundup of stories this weekend. We haven't got any major breaches, we've got no major cyber incidents, not that they're not happening in the wild, but for this week's lineup of stories, a little bit more game. I feel it's a bit more game sort of angled this week. What do you think?
There is, yeah, definitely.
So we're going to talk, we've got a mix out. Talk Final Fantasy 7. We are going to talk about Microsoft just a little bit. We're going to talk about Apple, PSVR2, quite get that out. We're going to talk red noses, and no, not the kind if you have a bad cold. GoldenEye, E3, and the Tech Rant Rumor Mill has just got one story in it this week. But on that point, then, let's kick off this week then with the first story of the week, which is all about Final Fantasy 7. And yeah, I remember playing this on the PS1. So, God, this must be what, 25 years old? It's got to be in it?
Yeah, 26 apparently, as of the 31st of January. Now, yeah,
Oh.
like you, I may have played this 7 or 8 times over. I've spent a lot of my childhood playing Final Fantasy 7. But it seems Japan loves it even more, and that's not really surprising. But yeah, 31st of January was the 26th anniversary, and Japan officially designated that date Final Fantasy 7 Day. Not a national holiday though, so you don't get the day off to go and play Final Fantasy VII. It's not mandated, but I think that's still an achievement for a game for a start, and especially for the industry to have a day recognised, dedicated to you.
Yeah, because this is to do with the Japan Anniversary Organization, or JAO, website, which apparently logs and tracks a lot of these different days, isn't it? Turns out they've also got a couple of other things happening on that day, which not related to Final Fantasy. Yes, Wet Towel Day,
nice.
and Yamamoto Egg Sandwich Day.
Ooh, tasty.
But yes. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, this was probably my first introduction into RPGs, and particularly Japanese RPGs.
Oh, definitely.
It came in the old double disc, didn't it? The old double sandwich.
The old double disc. Yep, got that one. I still have a
yeah.
copy of it. I have the original.
I think. Do you know what? I was looking the other day in one of my boxes of stuff, and I had Metal Gear Solid in there as well. That came with double disc, and there was a couple other ones as well. But yeah, I mean, look, it was definitely a decent game. And you know, what are we on now? I can't remember what Final Fantasy we're on now, but how many? There's been like
15,
several
16,
remakes.
17? Yeah, where are we now?
There's been a remake or two of this, though, hasn't there? I'm sure there's been a remake.
There has been a remake. That's a bone of contention, though.
Which I think that was a couple of years ago, wasn't it? If I'm correct.
It was still waiting for the PC port. They promised.
Yeah, the PC port that was meant to be last year, if I remember correctly from my notes.
Yeah. It was meant to be a while ago. I was looking forward to doing that, but no, it's not for me, apparently.
So really, then, this is just a celebration, you know, that this game is a landmark game. It was kind of, I guess, a turning point in RPGs, and I suppose with the PS1 being such a landmark console of choice, why not? Yeah, I mean, people have stranger days. We celebrate other weird stuff, don't we? So why not? You know,
why not?
Well, I wonder if Final Fantasy VIII or the others will get one too. But yes, happy Final Fantasy Day for those that celebrated back at the end of January, you know, commemorating the original launch of the game. And yeah, if you've got a copy of it, I wonder, do you know what? I'm going to have to go have a look how much that's worth now. I bet it's probably not worth a lot of money at all, is it, to be fair?
I think they sold a fair few copies.
Yeah. I was going to say they probably did. I mean, 1997. I can't believe that came out in 1997. My God. I mean, that's just,
how old do you feel now?
I feel very old, quite frankly, very old. Yes, I mean, I think I was looking when I did my notes. I think I read somewhere that they sold 14 million copies in the initial run of that. I mean, and the PS1. I mean, so many good games. You know, didn't they too many. I can't even say the word. Great games came out on the PS1. I mean, obviously, it was obviously referred to as the PS as opposed to the PS1 at the time. Let's be honest, we didn't know there was any
PlayStation.
But I mean, I think when I was looking at that the other day, because I went down the old Wikipedia rabbit hole, and 102 million units were sold.
Wowza, that's pretty good going, especially for back then.
I had two of them. I had two PlayStation 1s. The first one broke.
It lasted. Wow.
it lasted several years though. I ended up with having to play it with it on its side, with the door propped open, with a bit of blue tack stuck in the old, the pin. I never had the redesigned PS1. I bought myself some years later an original PS to play some games on. And you know what? Like everything else, nostalgia. It just
wasn't quite as good as you remember, no.
No. And then I had I had one of the old what were they called, cartridges that plugged in the back. There's a name for
Yeah.
them. The cheat cartridges, kind of stuff that you could play and do
Oh,
like
Action Replay.
the action
An
replay cartridge.
Executor or something was the other one,
That's
wasn't
it.
it? Yeah.
I had one of those plugged into the back. Some year, a couple of years
Yep.
later, and I did have the light gun, GunCon. For
Yep.
what was the game?
Time Crisis.
Time Crisis. Yep. Which is awesome. Where obviously at the arcade, you'd press the pedal and you drop down
You
on the
would,
gun,
yeah.
you press the button, wouldn't you? And I did have the mouse. I had the
I did not have the
PlayStation
mouse. No.
because do you remember? What the hell? What is wrong with me? I can't speak. CNC came out for it.
Oh, did it really?
Yes,
I did not know that.
CNC came out on the PlayStation. I want to say, I can't think what year it was. It came out, but it came out on the PlayStation, and I had the mouse with it. And I can't remember what year it was, but yeah, it had the mouse, and it was good, but it was obviously a bit weird sometimes. But it gave me a chance to play it more than I could do on a PC because I didn't really have a PC at that time. I was playing more other games and things. So yeah, definitely, mouse was an interesting option. I wouldn't want to know what that was today. I can't find it, but
No, I do know what you're saying though about the oldest. Not quite how you remember it. We have a local retro arcade, town over from us.
Oh, you do,
and I've
yes.
taken the kids there. And they have Time Crisis with the old pedal and the guns like that. But they also have Ridge Racer. Now I remember spending a lot of time playing Ridge Racer, thinking, "Oh my god, how amazing the graphics are!" Yeah, no, they're not. Not anymore.
Yeah, nostalgia's a pain, isn't it? It's not quite how we'll talk a bit more about
Leave it in your
nostalgia.
memory.
We'll talk a little bit more about nostalgia in a moment, but yes, not quite how it is. So, talking about games then, and obviously this story continues to trundle on, and this is obviously regarding the Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft. The close to $70 billion acquisition. We're still rumbling on, and Microsoft now feels that, publicly states, should we say, that Sony isn't telling the truth, is it, to the EU regulatory people? And let's be honest, we don't really think that this is a shock, given there's things that are coming out, the press releases, the leaked stories. Sony really are playing, I want to say, dirty here, I think, to be honest with you.
Slightly underhand at the very least.
Yeah, definitely. So they're now saying, aren't they? Chief Communications Officer Frank Shaw from Microsoft has taken to social media where he's now, and I state he's accusing, not us, accusing Sony of misleading the EU Regulatory Commission over Microsoft's plans around Call of Duty. And this is all around, like we keep talking about, this is all about Call of Duty. Activision Blizzard, this isn't $70 billion anymore for Activision. This is $70 billion for Call of Duty, it feels like, doesn't it?
Really? It does. It's like they do a lot more than Call of Duty, but Sony is very hung up on it.
Yeah. And basically now, according to Microsoft, Sony, they are stating that Sony is telling the EU government, the EU Commission, in the Brussels chambers that Microsoft is unwilling to give them parity for Call of Duty if they're Activision. Now, this is ridiculous because Microsoft have been on record almost from day one, haven't they? Saying that nothing will change. We will give game parity across consoles. We will give 10-year deals to Sony for, absolutely
and
everything.
Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, that's if it goes to Sony, of course. But they've already, the thing though with the Nintendo deal though is that the Nintendo has been signed, isn't it? And that's pending the deal with Sony. So Nintendo are going to get it.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. And we keep saying this and it feels like a broken record, but why would Microsoft take away a cash cow and lock it away and nobody else can touch it? They didn't do it at Minecraft, and Minecraft is across everything, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, you can get Minecraft. You can on literally anything, can't you? You can spin up your own home servers with it on and all sorts of things, and that makes them a ton of money.
Yeah, and what I don't get is why would Sony not want to ink this deal now? Get it on paper. Do your best, negotiate. Sony here have got the upper hand, because they could pretty much negotiate for what they want beyond blocking the deal. But why not go for it? It puzzles the hell out of me, really.
I don't know. As Microsoft said, they'll enforce it through a contract, regulatory agreements, or any other means. They're quite happy to be flexible here, but. I mean, anyone would think the fate of PlayStation 5 and Sony lies on Call of Duty.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, though, isn't it? Sony are relying on Call of Duty. They're relying on Call of Duty being an exclusive day one title that they can, get people to pick up new PlayStations with. They're pushing it for the PSN network or whatever they call it this week.
Yeah,
for the online gaming. Yeah,
but it's not
it's
like
worrying.
This is one of those ones that Sony have actually signed an exclusivity deal with. So it's not like currently they're getting Call of Duty before it's on Xbox or PC. It releases everywhere the same day, and that's what Microsoft is saying. It's going to stay the same. That is not changing.
No. It seems. I mean, the problem is though, Sony are poisoning the well, aren't they?
Yeah,
absolutely poisoning the well here. You know, we have talked about this before that Sony themselves are guilty of similar behavior. They've gone out of their way to make deals for other games. We've seen Sony, not really enforce crossplay. We've seen them not, being able to deliver on what they want to do. And it now seems a case of, well, Microsoft are going to plow ahead with this. And they're like, hang on a minute, let's not do anything here. And there's a lot of basically press saying, oh, Microsoft's got, they'll do this and they'll do that. And they say one thing and they do another. I don't necessarily think that's quite the case here. I think for the size of this acquisition, this isn't Microsoft buying up the competitor. And this is Microsoft almost unifying an industry, isn't it, to a degree?
Yeah.
Not obviously. And, from Sony's perspective, you're fighting against a behemoth here that ultimately, is no different to you when you disrupted the console market back in 95, 96 with the PlayStation, isn't it? Because everybody said when Sega and Nintendo and Sony turned up and they're like, what the hell? Sony console, excuse me? Go back to making TVs, Walkmans. And nobody took them seriously, did they? And next thing you know, which was, within 10 years, Sega pretty much were turned into a publishing house, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get why they're scared, but this isn't that. We're not, PlayStations are still shipping more units than Xbox.
Anything else? Yeah. Certainly more than Xbox. You're right.
Yeah. I like I say, we often say on this show, this is a weekly tech rant, and the rant here is just Sony, buck it up, move on from this. I want Game Pass. I want Call of Duty on Game Pass. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. All right.
Anyway, moving on. So our friends at Apple, they're in trouble.
Again?
It seems that they've got in trouble for its leaked email about leaked emails. To get your head around that one, yeah. So the US National Labor Relations Board has stepped in, and their prosecutors have kind of determined that Apple has been violating labor rights based on the comments made by the company's executives, as well as policies imposed on its employees. And we all know Apple and their various work rules they have, that you can do this and you can't do that, and the way you present yourself. So they're very, very strict around that. But apparently the US National Labor Relations Board aren't too happy with them about that one.
Yeah, this is a difficult one, isn't it? Really, given that I'm not entirely sure Apple have got really much pushback here, because it does seem that Apple are breaking laws. Given, I'm going by the statements that are there. Now, obviously, we're not a court here, we're not that, but given by the evidence that's presented. And this former employee, as you say, who's presented, it does seem that senior executives, based on these leaked emails, you're right, are breaking not only federal laws but the company's own policies as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which is, but what gets me, the one about posting impolite tweets. Oh dear, oh my god, the thought police are out now. I mean, what implies an impolite tweet? I'm sorry, did I not politely address you? Dear Carl, how are you this day?
Exactly.
I think that's kind of a grey area, isn't it? Because social media, does cover a whole wealth of sins, as we know.
I know. I mean, some of the ones they brought up, I think are questionable. They've obviously they're restricting staff from discussing business information. Well, business information is kind of broad in itself, but a lot of that could be commercially sensitive, and I can certainly see there's a reason to stop that one. Talking to reporters, again, it depends what you're talking about, I suppose. Revealing co-workers' compensation packages. I'd say that's a grey area anyway.
That's a grey area because, that's kind of like why, if you've got permission and you're talking about it, are you are you going to be penalised if I tell you what I'm paid, so to speak? And I don't know if it's California. No, is it Colorado? Isn't it? I don't know if California has, or maybe they have. But Colorado, isn't it? They have to publish job compensation now, don't they? They're what
They do,
salaries.
yeah, they do for quite a lot of
Yeah,
states now, isn't it? Most job postings have to have the actual salary range on it.
yeah. But I guess you're right. If it's breaching personal confidentiality, okay, grey
Yeah.
area, as you say. Okay.
I say revealing your own compensation package, go for it. But
Well,
revealing
I'm not getting.
others,
I'm not getting paid anything for this, by the way. Just to be
yeah,
clear.
no, me neither. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. I think they might win on some points, other ones not so much. But it'd be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, but the one talks about, isn't it? The other one is saying about, which was Tim Cook basically saying that anybody who leaks anything, isn't it? Leaks,
Yeah.
confidential information. Basically, that's cracking down, isn't it, on the leaking culture that is around
Yeah.
Apple. The whole, we're going to talk about the rumor mill later. That we're not leaking those, but other people are. There's a whole industry that is based around Apple rumors, Apple leaks, isn't it? We've got John Prosser, with that whole thing 2 years ago with the supposed March event. Do you remember? And the back and forth. Was it going to happen? It was, and then nothing. And you couldn't help but wonder, was that pulled because at least
Tim Cook trolling him.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen what happens. I mean, obviously that was not under Tim Cook, but we see what happened. Remember when the Gizmodo and the iPhone being left?
Oh yes, yeah, of course.
A little bit different, but yeah, it's just.
It's an interesting one because I mean, obviously Tim Cook has said about pledging to punish leakers. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone that works at Apple has signed an NDA, signed an actual legal contract, a legally binding contract saying you will not release company information. If you wanted to it, why did you sign the NDA? Obviously, you wouldn't have got a job without signing the NDA. That's just non-negotiable on that one. But you knew what you were signing. Anyone in the tech industry knows what an NDA is and what it means if you breach it. So I certainly think they've got a leg to stand on there.
It is, yeah, it's a very valid point. And I think also, if you're working in a company like that as well, you've signed the NDA, you're working on a product that hasn't come to market yet. Again, common sense dictates you don't go shouting about it unless you're in marketing.
No, and there's probably wiggle room about maybe the NDA is too broad, and it's covering things like impolite tweets and stuff like that. Yeah, it's probably an argument there. But yeah, releasing trade secrets is pretty much non-negotiable on that one.
Yeah, I think that's the same for any company. The companies that we work for, that again is a stated point there. You cannot disclose information, and the same would apply again, I suppose, things like financial information, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
You wouldn't disclose financial information about the company out because, again, being a publicly traded company, that could have an undue.
The SEC frown on that one.
They do indeed. They do. Talking of SEC, I've just been watching the Bernie Madoff documentary on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, talk about the SEC and not doing their job properly for several years, but that's another story. But yeah, actually on a random note, did you see that Elon Musk was found innocent, wasn't he?
Of what? It's been up for many charges.
Well, the Tesla taking Tesla.
Oh, the one where he said we've got the funding and he didn't actually have the funding.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How?
I'm sure.
We'll come back to this one. I think next week. Then we might investigate this one because I'm not sure how he got away with that.
He won. Over that tweet. Do you remember the tweet?
I remember the tweet.
Yeah. Well, he basically he's won it. Yeah, we'll have to. I'll follow up on that. But yeah, he's won it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very curious. But anyway, but yes, so Apple are in hot water over potentially breaking labor laws. And whilst the the NLRB, the National Labor
Relations Board,
they don't have the power to fine Apple, can they? They have to raise it with a legal system, but they can force Apple to change its company labor policies if necessary. So this could happen. We'll see. If anything changes, we will update you in a coming show.
Yeah.
Right then, back to Sony then. Oh yes, we were talking about Sony, talking about PlayStation. PlayStation shipping lots of units.
Yeah.
Now, the PS4. One of the things that shipped with the PS4 was the PSVR headset, wasn't it? Which was,
it was indeed.
VR console headset, which PlayStation 4 sold quite a lot of units with, didn't they? And it was, I would say groundbreaking to a degree, wasn't it? Proper VR for your console. And actually,
I mean, it wasn't the highest of quality, but it was passable, and it was, dare I say, cheap in comparison.
Yeah, and a lot of people loved it for things like, was it Beat Saber was a very popular
Yeah,
game, wasn't it? And other stuff. It was more family fun games.
it was.
Obviously,
Yeah,
there were AAA titles there, but it wasn't quite the same as you say, your high-end index or your reverb style of HBR. But that being said, when the PS5 launched the other year,
yeah.
there was no PSVR at launch date, wasn't it? And Sony was
No.
saying that this was coming, and now they've announced that they do not expect to ship as many units of the PSVR2 headset, do
No,
they?
they don't. No, no. I mean, pre-orders went live back in December at
Yeah.
$549, and apparently at that point, Sony kind of told manufacturers to have 2 million units ready to go for the this month launch, February 22nd.
Comes around quick.
Yeah. Well, it seems those pre-orders didn't go as well as expected. Yeah, and Sony is now telling manufacturers to expect something close to 1.5 million units over the next year.
Well,
Not 2 million at launch, 1.5 over the next year.
that's a bit of a drop.
That is a tad of a drop, isn't it? Now, I suspect the issue may be price on this one, which, let's be honest, isn't hugely pricey. Well, no, in comparison to a PC VR headset, like an Index, for example.
No, of course not. No.
Or even a standalone headset, like the Rift is what, $400, isn't it? Nowadays, not the Rift, sorry, the Quest 2, $400 odd. But that's a standalone headset and has processing on board. This is a tethered headset for a console, what retails at $499, and the headset is $549. It can only be used tethered to the PlayStation. I imagine that's a big thing to buy, isn't it? That's a lot of money to spend, especially on the unknown.
It does, and I think you're right here. And just to take a step back, the story broke in Bloomberg, didn't it? And came from a source familiar with the company. Now, this source hasn't necessarily been, I think, verified 100%. So there are some, I think there's some kind of view on whether or not this is true. But I think, to be fair to you, I think the cost angle is probably the biggest barrier here, and I suspect you're right. Given the current, the current economic environment, people are making a judgment call on whether to do it. And the other point is, you say it's not a standalone headset. So if you want to play VR on the PlayStation, you have to pay. You have to get a VR headset only for the PlayStation. Those games,
it's tethered. It's not wireless either.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's it.
A physical cable connecting you.
And they're exclusive VR games, aren't they, as well?
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. What's this? Exclusivity? Excuse me. What were we talking about earlier?
That one. It's even for a hardcore gamer, that's a big swallow. You've got to really like VR and really want it on your PlayStation.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? I think, there are some big titles being slated for. I think they had about 30
Gran Turismo.
titles.
Gran Turismo is going to be.
Gran Turismo 7 there. They had, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Resident Evil Village are all in there as they were. I remember we talked about this at launch, what were the launch titles. So, there are good games there. And I suspect, given that initial, spec bump that they've had compared to the first PSVR headset, if you're into it, like you say, if you're into your PlayStation, you're into VR, then you're going to buy this. Same as, if you're into VR on the PC, you're going to have that. But you definitely, I think you need to be bought into the ecosystem here to be able to get the most out of it. This isn't a frivolous, I'm going to buy myself another controller style. No. It's not, I mean, that's the thing. It's not like, that's the thing, isn't it? It's not like take an Xbox Elite controller, isn't cheap, quite a pricey bit of kit. But you can play it on the PlayStation. You can play it on the Xbox. You can play it on the PC. You can use it on an iPad. You know what I'm saying? It's you can
multiple
use it.
Purposes.
This is very much PS only or not at all.
Yeah, and I know obviously Xbox doesn't have that option for VR headset, but I imagine if Microsoft were going to do it, they'd probably use Windows mixed reality, which then you could just go and use it on your PC. And I imagine you can just take a PC headset and plug it in. As long as it's not an Oculus, obviously. But
no, but I think that's the reason. I think that's the reason Microsoft haven't done it is because they don't see there is absolute value in doing it. Because most consoles are played in a family environment, living room space, if you will. And VR isn't conclusive to playing in that environment, is it? I think that,
No, I mean, I've done some VR in the living room because I've got a Quest 2, so it's a standalone unit if I want it to be. So I've done it with the kids in the living room, but lots of other kids get in the way.
And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft don't see it as having enough value to drive sales up.
No, exactly. It's going to be a big investment. Probably not as big an investment for Microsoft, as they've already laid the foundation with Windows Mixed Reality. So not as a huge investment, but is it going to pay off enough to warrant it?
Well, that's the thing, and I think you're right. They've got it already there because obviously the way Xbox is architected, it's not going to be. You're right. It's not going to be a difficult thing to probably, like you say, bring in those other headsets.
Yeah.
But the point is, why do it? That's I think what the point is why
Yeah.
would
No, exactly. So, well, we'll see how the launch goes. It's less than a month away now, so it'll be interesting to see if or when we get some figures about how well it's selling.
Definitely. So then, we talked earlier when in the the cold over there about a red nose designed by Jony Ive. Now you're
Yeah.
probably thinking, if you're not in the UK, thinking, what the hell are you guys on about?
Yeah.
Doesn't Jony Ive have some design studio called Love From? Well, yes, he does. So let us enlighten you, dear listener. So, Carl, do you want to tell everybody what Red Nose Day is all about?
Yeah. Well, one, it's literally a red nose you put on your face, but it's to do with comic relief. This is kind of a yearly event where people take part in all sorts of events and challenges to raise money for children facing poverty, not just in the UK, but around the world. I mean, last year it raised, 43 million last year? And that was a bad year for Red Nose. I mean,
I know,
they have raised generally over 100 million, but obviously we had COVID, there's the recession going on, so we don't have quite as much money, but still 43 million for good causes. But yeah, people go and buy an actual red nose and they wear it all day to kind of signify the event.
And these red noses, like I say, are a staple of the year. They come out. And usually they have like a funny feature about them, don't they? They've got a design, and for many years they've either been plastic. I think recently they've been rubber, or kind of that sort of style of material. And then this one, designed by Jony Ive, is I believe I want to say it's paper, but I think it's meant to be kind of
Some
plant
plant-based
based.
material, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
recyclable, and this one's really clever, as you'd expect from Jony Ive. So instead of being like a sort of a solid piece of material, this is a kind of a flat C-shaped that you open out and has a little clip, and it uses like a honeycomb material to give you the round nose effect. And it's amazing, and you can buy them today, which is February 6th. They're available today. They're £2.50, or I think it's equivalent to $3. You can buy them online, and Amazon are also allowing you to buy 8 per customer, because originally you had to go to a shop, put money in a tin. I'm going to buy some on Amazon now because I just want something designed by Jony Ive. I mean, I've got an iPad, I've got an iPhone, but
got a lot of stuff designed by Jony Ive.
But this is great. And as a kid, we always had them. My mum always used to get them for us, or we'd get them at school, and it just is something, that here is a very uniquely British thing. And as you say, is around the charity aspect in it. And, Red Nose Day debuted back in 1988 with charity. And as you say, they've done a lot around the world. It is particularly about children, not just those in facing issues in the UK, but children in poverty. Particularly this year, I suspect the Ukraine war will be of a larger focus, and
of course
those there. But this used to be the old-fashioned style telethon, with the old comes up on the screen how much money's been raised now. There's a whole night of activity sketches, isn't there? Usually the big acts of the day or the big TV programs of the day have like a comic relief special episode, don't they? And things like that. So it's very, very good. But now Jony Ive can add Red Nose to his list of illustrious designs. Very very good.
They have made me laugh. They've done the advert for it, haven't they? And they finish it off jokingly describing it as the most perfect nose in history. Maybe a bit of a pot shot at Jony Ive there.
Of course it would be. Very, very good. Very good. So yes, I've just added them into my Amazon basket. So we'll see when they come.
Bye.
Right then, talking of which then, so the last week we kind of teed up, didn't we, about 007, or more importantly, GoldenEye. This is where I should have had some GoldenEye music, shouldn't I? I failed there.
I can hear it in my head. It's fine.
Yeah, and I must apologise for the audio from our last recording, by the way. So we had some issues with our recording platform, Zencaster, which meant that we had to use an alternative source, and our virtual soundbar wasn't available. So very sorry for any of the audio issues there, but this week things are back to normal. So then, right, GoldenEye 007 is now available on Xbox Game Pass and Nintendo Switch. But hold that thought about the Switch. So if you are, of a certain age, you maybe remember playing back in 1997 GoldenEye on the N64, maybe around a friend's house or your own house, split screen or quad screen as it was.
Quad screen, definitely.
Back on the old CRT TVs. I remember doing that many times, friend. And it was brutal. You four of you play, your friends, you'd all be watching your own corner of the screen on a small TV back then, trying to work out who was going where. And if you're like me, sometimes you'd forget which one you're watching, and all of a sudden you'd be like, shoot, you'd be getting shot. Or, of course, if you had, the golden gun, it was all over anyway, wasn't it? With the golden gun. So Rare, who were the original studio, have worked to release this now as it's come back out. This is kind of, though, this is very similar to an unreleased version that was going to come out for the Xbox 360 back in 2008 time, but it didn't come out, wasn't launched. There was a leaked copy that showed up the other year, but this is a fully licensed, fully remastered version in 4K for those that want it. On Xbox Game Pass. I couldn't be happier. I was well happy to this. So I got it out last week. I showed it to the kids. They were like a bit, the graphics are a bit like what the hell. And then gameplay. We had a couple of goes on the multiplayer because obviously to start with, if you haven't played the game, you haven't unlocked many of the missions, have you? So you've only a couple of the. They found it brutal. They were in fact quite upset that Dad was able to pick this up after 25 odd years and was still able to play it.
Still beat him, did you? Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Making little kids cry, Jay.
Making little kids cry again. So I did say this is available on Game Pass, which is fantastic. So you can play it on your Xbox console. You can play it on Xbox Cloud Gaming as well. I played a quick blast on the iPad the other day, though that was quite difficult. Playing it with touch controls, by the way.
You take up your Xbox controller.
I know. It is available on the Nintendo Switch, as you clearly stated. However, you need to have the Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack. So it doesn't. If you've got Nintendo Switch Online family membership, I've got one of those because the kids have it on their Switches to play. You can download the N64 game pack, but it will not work because you need this expansion plus pack, which costs extra money. That was rather annoying, I have to say.
But there's a difference, isn't it? The Xbox One is a remastered.
Correct.
The Switch is the original one using Nintendo's virtualization thing they use for all the old games, isn't it? But the Switch, you do get online multiplayer. You don't with the Xbox, it's local only.
Local only, but that's not the end of the world.
No, but I thought maybe we could have played it co-op, multiplayer, me, you, and our friend would have been quite good fun.
It is insane. Do you remember the Rumble pack that came with the N64 controller?
I remember the Rumble packs, the amount of, was it AA or was it AAA batteries that went through on those? Yep.
Yeah. So my brother had the N64. I didn't have it. So I had the PlayStation when this came out.
No, I had both. I was a lucky boy.
No. So we had. So he used to kind of, when he got this, he wasn't really. He I think I remember borrowing it off a friend and borrowing his N64, which didn't go down very well. But it is. I mean, I say it's aged very well. They've done a great job. They haven't changed the graphics to make it look 2023.
They haven't done a high res texture pack kind of thing. No.
Well, no, they haven't. No, you're right. They have not done a Grand Theft Auto. Thank God. It does. It looks like the original game, and actually, I think that's how it should be. The difference is though, it plays well. It's got the 4K upscaling, so it doesn't
probably plays at like 500 frames a second.
Yeah, it just you can imagine though on a like a 46-inch TV, blocky graphics do not look that great.
No, I imagine not.
And like we were talking about nostalgia, nostalgia is a pain.
Yep.
As a pain. It is hard. It's not the hardest game.
I haven't played this yet. I'm not sure I can bring myself to do it.
But I played it on agent level first because of the difficulty. Then I played it on, I think it was the last one was 007 mode. I can't remember. And that's almost like one shot, one kill. And then, it's quite difficult when you do that. But I would say though, if you're of a certain age, you remember playing this first time round, and you've got the opportunity to play it now, go out, get it. If you've got Xbox Game Pass, get it downloaded on your Xbox or play it on Xbox Cloud Gaming. It's definitely worth some of your time.
Yep, definitely. So, talking on Microsoft and Nintendo and Sony, we've talked about all of them today. But the one thing they've all got in common, they're not going to E3 apparently this year.
No, it's a bit of a washout from that point of view, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first in-live event in the last couple of years, isn't it? Because we've had COVID and everything. So E3 is back live in, is it July sometime in LA?
Yeah.
Can't remember. I thought I had the dates written down. Oh, yeah. Oh, June the 13th through 16th in LA. But yeah, it's rumored that none of the three are going to be attending. Now, Sony haven't technically attended since 2018, so that's not really surprising. But Microsoft have been, but they're instead going to be holding a showcase event in LA and timing it with E3. So it's not inconvenient for people to go and do the Microsoft event, but they're not going to be attending E3. Don't know what's going on there. Clearly something. But traditionally, Nintendo have also had a stand at the event. But they do their Nintendo Direct events. So this year they're just going to be doing a Nintendo Direct, and again, the rumor is they won't be having a stand there either.
Interesting. I mean, I guess Microsoft though have also been doing a lot of these, direct to consumer events, haven't they?
They
recently.
have, yeah.
So maybe this is the end of the the big turn up, at these events, because of the cost.
It's going to be a big loss, isn't it, for E3?
It has a big loss for E3. I guess from Microsoft's perspective, though, they've just had massive layoffs, aren't they? They're working through, they've just had to write down a lot of money on some of their profits. I guess spending several $1 million at E3 probably wasn't featuring high on their agenda. And given the fact they're probably also, and maybe this is just playing devil's advocate, maybe they're not confident that the acquisition of Activision Blizzard is going to go through in time, so they won't have something to showcase. Whereas before, they might have had a big song and a dance around. Look what we blah blah blah. But if they don't have that, I guess is that probably not decision. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's an odd one. It's going to be a loss for the industry for not to have them there. But then I wonder how many more will drop out before June the 13th.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. But then I guess then the problem is what kind of loss are the organisers running if these big tenants of the event don't turn up?
Reminds me of Mobile World Congress.
Yeah, a few years ago. And another one's gone. And another one's
gone. In the middle of COVID, no, we're still going ahead of it anyway.
Nope, we're not now.
No, because there's no one to fill the halls with.
Come back next year. So we did. Right then. So told you it was working. Right then, so the Temple Rumor, what have you got inside? Let me have a rummage around in the bag. We've got one story then from our friend over.
It's Slim Pickings this week, isn't it? Yeah. Well, this is an odd one. So it started off by saying, look, apparently, according to Ming Chi Kuo, we're getting a foldable iPad next year. But now the rumors are we're not, from different people. And there's a bit of an online squabble going on, isn't there? So obviously, Kuo started off by saying, he's not expecting any new iPads in the next 9 to 12 months, with an iPad mini refresh expected in the first quarter of next year. And obviously this foldable iPad, which is apparently going to have a carbon fiber kickstand. Bit odd. I don't think I've ever seen carbon fiber on a Apple device, but hey, never mind. But then, shortly after he did his collection of tweets, both Mark Gurman and Ross Young have both said they've heard nothing about a foldable iPad in the pipeline. But Young does go on to say that there is a supply chain chatter about a 20.5-inch foldable notebook from Apple. But this isn't going to be ready until at least 2025, and nothing for next year, certainly.
So I think it's fair to say Apple are going to make a foldable iPad or foldable device at some stage. It will happen because the nature of the universe states that Apple will get there eventually. But as we often say, Apple don't typically tend to be the first to market with a product. They will innovate and make that product the best in the market. The same with the iPad. The iPad was never the first tablet, but God,
not by a long shot. I had some Android ones.
Yeah, but my God, has it defined the tablet market? And I think this is the case with the foldable. And I would imagine Apple's view here is until they can release a product that is going to work as expected and not going to have the creases or the failures or any of the issues that Samsung have had with their foldable products, and is going to give you the best experience, you ain't going to see it on the market. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
No, it was interesting to see wildly different stories.
Yeah.
And Ross Young's got a very good rate of
guy,
prediction.
isn't he?
He's
Yeah,
a display guy, so he should have heard about this if there was going to be one next year. Because if it's next year, there are already prototypes going around at this point, surely.
Yeah, look, I mean, Apple could pull out the bag. I mean, not suggest they haven't got it in development. They probably are prototyping it. You're just not going to see it.
Yep.
But but Quo is pretty solid. I don't suggest Quo is wrong. Maybe somewhere along the line there's been talk of a prototype, and that's perhaps what he's looking at.
Could well be, or maybe there's mixture. Young is talking about a 20.5-inch foldable, or maybe there's. What's the difference between a notebook and an iPad at that form factor?
Well,
if it's a foldable, it's touchscreen. There's no physical keyboard. They're basically identical. It's just a name, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, I will say, is that the statement from him that says there'll be no new iPad releases in the next 9 to 12 months. I think actually that's probably not a bad thing. I think they need to let the dust settle on the M2s. Quite frankly.
Yep.
Because I think the problem with Apple now, and they've got themselves into this kind of loop, is they're cannibalizing their own sales every 12 months, aren't they?
Yep. They've gone crazy. And people get to that point where they're not going, you know what, I'll buy the latest shiny. No, it has to actually be a compelling one, not just a spec bump.
No, not at all. It's like with the, my iPad, theoretically there was nothing wrong with that 12.9. I just needed to do a size change, and I'm very happy with what I've done. But the fact is, I don't need to upgrade that iPad now for another couple of years minimum. In fact, probably longer theoretically. The battery could probably give out first before it does. So it's very odd. Very odd. I just think Apple need to slow it down. But the problem is slowing it down means that you lose market momentum. I know there's lots of going on here, but yeah, I just, from where I sit as a consumer, slow it down.
Yep.
Slow it down. But yeah, I'm not suggesting he's wrong. I think it's a fair statement to say Apple are going to put out a folding device, but I would imagine Ross Young is probably more correct here. Than Quo is on the timelines. The kickstand sounds interesting because that might as well be a Surface.
Well, yes, it sounds very much like a Surface, doesn't it?
But it says carbon fiber, but knowing Apple, that'd probably be, it'll have a metal look to it. Probably carbon fiber inside it, won't it?
Yeah.
But how do they build it so it doesn't look like a Surface? So it's beyond me.
Well, yeah, iPads are kind of grey, the Surface is kind of grey, and yeah.
Yeah, you're like,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, you can see it now, design app, right? We don't want to get sued. So how are you going to change this? Guess what? We're going to make it black. Hey, win. But yes, I'm unsure on that. But yeah, interesting to see what comes out. So, well, a bit of a shorter show this week, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. We'll be back next week for episode 123. My God, yes, we are indeed 123 for all of the latest tech news and information. I think maybe might have a little bit of talk about Home Labs next week as well.
Yeah, it could do.
Some Home Lab updates on where we are and what we're doing. I think probably something good to have a chat, something different. But of course, you can find us on Twitter. Yet we're still there as the tumbleweed passes through at Weekly Tech Rant. We're also online at techrant.online for all of our show notes and information. And of course, wherever you find your podcast, you can find us. So with that, I've been Jay.
I've been Carl. Have a good evening all.